Good evening, Your Worship. Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm David Chamberlain. I'd just like to make a couple of points to the submission I made. And the first part of it, selling small percentages of several assets, in my opinion, is not the right option. It will only provide a profit to lead managers who are providing the IPO. And once again, it'll be the ratepayers who will suffer because council will end up selling a bigger portion of each of the assets to cover the cost of the IPO. The other point I'd like to make is I think that the best option was the first one that council was considering, and that was to sell a portion of CCHL. Doing that, we could have one or two long-term cornerstone shareholders like Ngāi Tahu, perhaps the superannuation fund, maybe even one of the big banks would be interested. This would release the funds that are needed to repair the city and would get our services back to normal. That way, we're only dealing with one particular asset and there's no need for an IPO because you're going to be talking to 2 or 3 selected bidders to provide you with the funds that are needed. That's all I think I should say, Your Worship.
Thank you. And it's good to have a bit of time for some questions. Raf?
Yeah, thanks, David. So we didn't really get to discuss this before with previous submitters, but you'd be happy we've already made about having partners like Ngāi Tahu or the Super Fund or ACC or even KiwiSaver funds as longer-term investors that we could buy those shares back from in the future?
I think that they would be good long-term providers and they have the funds available to actually invest. I never thought of ACC. That would have been another one that's probably quite good. They're always looking to invest. And I believe that it is good to have someone who's going to be a long-term partner. And we're sitting in a building that you're in a partnership with Ngāi Tahu now, and that is proving to be quite worthwhile. So I don't see an option, any problems with that.
Okay, thanks.
Yanni?
Thank you for your submission, and it's really interesting that you say that this building's a worthwhile partnership. Are you aware of how much this building's costing us as a city?
Yes, I know that the agreement, sorry, I don't know the exact cost, but I know the agreement was pretty strong on, and maybe Ngāi Tahu are on the winning side of it. But it is a long-term option, and I believe that you will have the opportunity at some stage to renegotiate this building.
Okay.
What I kind of really appreciated about this was that you'd started from a position of being opposed to the idea of a share of CCHL being sold to a strategic partner, but that the more you thought about it and then looked at what the other options were, that you felt that you came back to that point. But on the port one, it was interesting that you're sort of basically, I think that what you're identifying is that the port probably Littleton has probably more of a risk in terms of its own, what it might actually end up costing the city. So it may not actually be the best investment for us to be involved in. Do you want to explore that a bit further?
Yeah, the idea with putting the ports down is it happened with both Auckland and Littleton. Both the Auckland Council and the Christchurch Council both sold off their ports. Then suddenly something happened and they bought them back. Now, I think that here it was a matter of the asset sales, but in Auckland it was a case of they got scared off by the ports of Tauranga. Ports of Tauranga are very strong. They're a big independent company and they're doing very well.
Well, they're still 44% owned by their region.
Yes, they do have a portion.
66% owned by their region.
Oh, okay.
And their region now earns more from 66% than it earned from 100%.
But they're also a very aggressive port, and
They
their
have
share
interests in Timaru, which are very interesting to us and present a threat to our port.
Well, exactly right. They had the option. They did want to buy into Littleton,
I know.
and Ports of Otago got wind of it, so they bought a blocking share, and that was eventually, they said that wasn't worth it. So they joined Prime Port, and they now have an internal port at Rolleston, which is going to be big.
Yeah.
They also have the same thing in situation at Wiri, because they have a partnership with Northland Port. But the real point with selling the asset, and I'm sorry, I'm running out, I see the light flashing. The real point with the port is, if you're going to sell an asset, sell it all, get out of it altogether, and let the public run it. Don't mess about with bits of it. Either that, or, as I said originally, the part that I like the best is to have a partnership with somebody with CCHL.
Yeah, that's great. Look, thank you very much for your time and for making a submission and for being thoughtful in that regard. Thank you. And the next